Prime Minister didn't just lose a vote last night, he lost his own army. And what triggered it will make your blood boil. 72 hours ago, Keir Starmer controlled Britain's governing party. Today, he's political roadkill, crushed not by his enemies, but by the people who put him in power. Labour MPs, his own colleagues, just voted him out in a no-confidence motion, so brutal, Westminster is calling it an execution. The reason? A Brexit betrayal so shocking, it's torn his party to shreds and ignited a firestorm that's now consuming British politics from the inside out. This isn't just another Westminster scandal. This is a political assassination that reveals something far more dangerous about the state of democracy in Britain. And you need to hear the full story. If you want the truth before the media spins it into oblivion, hit subscribe now. Because what I'm about to expose gets darker with every detail. Let me take you back 72 hours. Everything looked stable. Starmer was firmly in control. Labour was unified, focused on the economy, the NHS, the cost of living crisis. Brexit was settled, or so the public was told. The government machinery was moving forward, and Westminster insiders were confident Starmer had secured his position for years to come. Cabinet meetings ran smoothly. Policy announcements rolled out on schedule. Behind the scenes, Labour whips reported strong party discipline. There were no warning signs, no whispers of rebellion, no hints of the earthquake about to split the party down the middle. But in the shadows, something very different was happening. Something that would detonate Starmer's career and expose the deepest fault line in British politics since the Brexit referendum itself. Here's what they didn't want you to know. 3 days ago, leaked documents dropped like a grenade into the heart of Westminster. While Starmer smiled for cameras and preached about respecting the referendum result, he was secretly negotiating with Brussels behind closed doors. Not small technical adjustments, not minor policy tweaks, total fundamental reversals of Brexit's core principles. The details are explosive. Fishing rights, the symbolic heart of British sovereignty, were being extended back to EU control. Trade rules were being realigned with European regulatory standards, essentially re-entering the single market through the back door. And perhaps most shocking of all, discussions were underway about allowing European judges to arbitrate disputes on British soil. Let that sink in. The very sovereignty that 17 million people voted to reclaim in 2016. The independence that cost Britain years of political chaos and 3 prime ministers their careers, Starmer was quietly handing it back, piece by piece, negotiation by negotiation. One senior Labour MP, speaking anonymously to the press, said it perfectly. We realised we'd been systematically lied to by the man we trusted most. This wasn't a policy disagreement. This was a fundamental betrayal of everything we campaigned on. And that's when the knives came out. What happened next was unprecedented in modern British political history. Private WhatsApp groups erupted in fury. Messages flew at 3 a.m. Words like traitor and betrayal appeared again and again. Emergency meetings were hastily convened in shadowy committee rooms across Westminster. And within 24 hours of the leak, something unthinkable materialised. A formal motion of no confidence against their own Prime Minister. But here's what makes this different from every other political rebellion you've seen. This wasn't organised by backbench troublemakers or fringe activists. The signatures came from everywhere. Shadow ministers Starmer personally appointed. Party veterans who served under Blair and Brown. Corbyn-era socialists and centrist Blairites, natural enemies, united in rage. Even MPs Starmer had elevated to prominent positions, people who owed their careers to him, turned their backs and signed the motion. This wasn't a rebellion, it was a firing squad. Inside Westminster, witnesses described scenes of absolute chaos. Shouting matches in committee rooms so intense they could be heard echoing through the marble hallways 3 floors away. Doors slamming hard enough to shake the ancient walls. Senior MPs who had worked side by side for years, suddenly refusing to make eye contact in corridors. One parliamentary aide described walking past a huddle of Labour figures and hearing one growl through clenched teeth. He's finished, and we're not going down with him. Another insider called it watching the party turn the gun on itself, except everyone's finger is on the trigger at the same time. By the time Starmer's inner circle realised how serious the situation was, it was already too late. The avalanche had begun and nothing could stop it. But the real fury, that's not happening in Westminster's oak-panelled rooms, it's happening in the streets. In Sunderland, Grimsby, Hartlepool, Stoke-on-Trent, the red wall towns that swung to Labour in the 2024 with one clear expectation, that Brexit would be protected. Voters feel stabbed in the back at the most visceral level. These aren't abstract political debates happening in some distant capital. These are communities that voted overwhelmingly to leave the EU in 2016, watched their traditional Labour MPs promise to honour that democratic choice, and now feel like they've been played for fools. A fisherman in Grimsby, his weathered face tight with anger, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage, told reporters, "We voted to take our country back in 2016. We were told it was done. We trusted Labour to protect that decision. And now look, they tried to give it all away again while lying to our faces. We won't forget this. Not ever." His words became a rallying cry that spread like wildfire. Within hours, social media platforms exploded. Hashtags like #StarmerOut, #Brexit betrayal, and #Labour lies trended at the top of every platform. Videos of furious constituents confronting their MPs at town halls racked up millions of views. Memes mocking Starmer flooded timelines faster than moderators could track them. And outside Parliament, protesters began to gather. By early evening, hundreds had swelled to thousands. Union Jacks waved in the cold air under grey skies. Chants of "Traitor, traitor, respect the vote" echoed across Parliament Square, bouncing off the Gothic architecture. Banners reading "Respect Brexit" and "Starmer betrayed Britain" lined the security barriers. The anger wasn't just about one politician anymore. It was about something deeper, something more corrosive to the entire democratic system. The fundamental question of whether the votes of ordinary people actually matter when they conflict with what the political class wants. And Starmer's political enemies? They smelled blood in the water immediately. Nigel Farage appeared on every major news network within hours of the vote announcement. His message was brutal, direct, and perfectly calibrated. Keir Starmer is the ultimate betrayer of Brexit. Labour's mask has finally slipped. They never respected the will of the people, and now everyone in Britain can see it clearly. Reform UK's polling numbers spiked overnight, double-digit surges in key battleground constituencies. Farage's party, once dismissed as a fringe movement, suddenly looked like a genuine threat to Labour's northern strongholds. The Conservatives, still reeling from their own catastrophic implosion and leadership chaos, suddenly found themselves with ammunition they never expected. Shadow cabinet ministers began circling, preparing coordinated attacks, sensing an opportunity to rebuild relevance from Labour's ashes. But the real danger isn't coming from outside the party, it's festering inside. Leadership contenders started positioning before Starmer's political corpse was even cold. Phones were buzzing with calls to major donors. Quiet meetings were arranged with union bosses in London hotel rooms. Rival camps formed in real time, each convinced they could save the party from complete collapse. Some are demanding a return to traditional socialism, arguing Labour lost its soul the moment it abandoned working-class voters for metropolitan Liberals. Others insist the only path forward is a radical centrist reset, rebuilding credibility with business leaders and international partners. The result? Open warfare, and a party tearing itself apart on live television. One political analyst captured it perfectly. This isn't a leadership crisis. This is an existential meltdown playing out in real time. If Labour doesn't stabilise in the next 72 hours, they could fracture beyond any possibility of repair. Then came the vote itself. The chamber was packed to capacity, every seat filled, the press gallery overflowing with journalists from around the world. The air was thick enough to cut with a knife, heavy with tension and the weight of history being written in real time. As MPs filed through the division lobbies to cast their votes, the silence was deafening. No cheers from either side, no jeers, no theatrical performances for the cameras, just the sound of hundreds of footsteps on ancient stone floors and the crushing weight of what was about to happen. When the speaker stood to announce the result, you could feel the entire nation holding its breath. The numbers were read aloud in the traditional formal manner. Then gasps rippled through the chamber. Starmer had lost, not narrowly, not by a handful of votes that could be spun as close or controversial. By a margin so devastatingly wide, it left absolutely no room for doubt. His time as Labour leader was categorically over. Some MPs sat frozen in their seats, staring straight ahead in shock. Others quietly slipped out through side exits, desperate to avoid the wall of cameras and reporters waiting outside. A few openly wept, not out of sadness for Starmer personally, but out of genuine grief for what their party had become. And Starmer himself? He remained completely motionless in his seat on the front bench, staring straight ahead at nothing, jaw clenched, as if refusing to accept the reality unfolding around him in real time. Within seconds, phones across Britain lit up simultaneously with breaking news alerts. Starmer ousted in historic no-confidence vote. Outside Parliament, the protesters erupted in roars of triumph. But here's why this matters far beyond Westminster drama and political theatre. This isn't about one politician losing power, it's not about personalities or party politics. It's about something that goes to the very heart of British democracy. Trust. Trust in politicians to keep their promises. Trust in Parliament to respect referendum results. Trust in the fundamental idea that when millions of ordinary people vote for something, their elected leaders will honour that decision, rather than secretly working to undermine it. And right now, across every corner of Britain, that trust is shattered into a million pieces. Labour is now in absolute freefall. The party has splintered into warring factions that can barely stand to be in the same room. Some are demanding an immediate return to traditional socialism and working-class priorities. Others are pushing hard for a centrist reset and reconciliation with business interests. Still others want a complete purge of anyone associated with the Starmer era. It's open civil war before Starmer's chair is even cold. Meanwhile, Reform UK is rising like a phoenix from Labour's ashes. Nigel Farage is capitalising on every headline, every scandal, every moment of chaos. If Labour completely collapses and Reform fills that void in British politics, the two-party system that has defined this country for generations could be finished forever. Britain could be entering entirely uncharted political territory. This morning, as dawn broke over Westminster, Keir Starmer left Downing Street for the last time as Labour leader. Cameras flashed in rapid succession, creating a strobe effect in the grey morning light. Protesters shouted from behind metal barriers, their voices hoarse from hours of chanting. Security personnel formed a tight corridor as he walked to his car. The man who once promised to restore trust in British politics, to heal divisions, to be the steady hand the country desperately needed. He walked into history as its latest casualty. But here's the crucial point. His downfall wasn't caused by the opposition. It wasn't caused by Reform UK or the Conservatives or external enemies. It was caused entirely by his own choices. Secret negotiations conducted behind closed doors, broken promises made to voters who trusted him, and catastrophically underestimating the fury of the people he claimed to represent. He thought he could betray Brexit voters without facing consequences. He was catastrophically, devastatingly wrong. And now one haunting question looms over Westminster like a dark cloud. If Brexit can destroy yet another political giant, who falls next? This story is nowhere near finished. It's just beginning. Labour's about to erupt into the most vicious, brutal leadership battle in the party's entire history. Reform UK is surging in every poll. The Conservatives are sharpening their knives and preparing to strike. And what happens in the next 72 hours could fundamentally reshape British politics for a generation. If you want every twist, every power play, every political earthquake, before it breaks in the mainstream news cycle, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Don't miss what comes next. And here's what I need from you. Drop a comment and tell me honestly, was Starmer's downfall completely justified? Or did Labour just commit political suicide? Your answer might actually predict what happens next in this unprecedented crisis. Let's debate it below.